Good morning, Michael Knight.
Good morning, New York. Vinnie is in Seattle, Washington, and he's usually in that town every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at this time. And today being a morose Monday, here we are.
I try to be, and this is my good friend Michael Knight, and he is usually down in Pasadena, where it's hip hop and happening, or hip hot and happening, I should say.
It was Saturday night, that's for sure.
Yeah, big Saturday night. Was the football game in Pasadena this past weekend?
Yes, USC, UCLA.
Yes, and how did that turn out?
48-45 USC. It was a shootout till the last moment.
I enjoy those kind of games. Reminds me of the old AFC, where they used to get out there and sling the ball around.
They were doing some slinging. Also, turnovers played a big part in the show, and there were a lot of them.
Apple or strawberry?
These were more rosy, because everything is rosy at the Rose Bowl.
Except if you're sitting up there in the box where the pros from Kansas City come in, where they're just looking at things in rose-colored glasses.
Well, they're worried, of course, because USC and UCLA could both leave the Pac-12, leaving it at the Pac-10, and there are some who are vying for the fact that because one of them is a public university, UCLA, that it just can't go wherever it wants without the Board of Governors of the state of California, who control the state 9 campuses of Cal, say you can go or you can't go. And they have not said anything to that effect. They're saying they don't want them to go, but they haven't presented a legal package or a sophisticated threat that would prevent them from going. And if USC and UCLA can prove they get a better deal in terms of television and in terms of competition and in terms of a chance to recruit nationally, which they already have when you think about it, certainly USC does, that they would be prevented from bettering themselves in the business sense, now that it's so professionally aligned that the players get paid for their likeness or use of their likeness. There's going to be more income possibilities for players coming in the future that you can see, and they could attract a better player that can be paid more money should they be playing in a more competitive conference than the Pac-12. But as you make that argument, I'm looking at the Pac-12 this morning. Let me put on my super magnifiers. USC is number 5 in the top 25. UCLA dropped to 17. Oregon is 10, Washington is 12, Utah 14, Oregon State 22. Who did we leave out? All the Arizona teams and Washington State. Everybody else made it to the top 25. Now, how far they advance under those conditions is not anybody's guess. The answer is not much further. It's that time of year.
Yeah. It's I mean, can you make a case for Washington State creeping into the top 25?
They did once. They were there one day.
Yeah,
they were there 1 week, I should say. At number 25.
And if they win the Apple Cup, because this is Apple Cup week, if they can figure out a way to pull out the Apple Cup from Washington, the game is at home, but Washington is looking to exact a piece of revenge for last year when they just whooped them and then they danced on the sacred hollow of Husky Stadium.
No dancing in Husky Stadium. Is that the rule? No dancing.
They took the flag that they take, I guess, all around the country.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was that flag, but they took a flag similar to that, if not that flag, and they planted it in Husky Stadium on the field.
On the 50.
And there was quite a few Husky fans that were somewhat upset by that. Well,
I remember
it wasn't a all darn game. I mean, do you have to insult the young men of Washington?
Yeah. That was the idea. One player said yesterday, after USC pulled that out, because it really was a startling, fantastic victory, He said, I don't care what they say, and I don't care what we do. We run LA, and that's all I care about. And that is the way you feel about the rivalry game. And of course, the Civil War is coming up in Oregon, and that's going to be quite a game because Oregon State is right behind Oregon in terms of ratings.
He's playing some decent ball, yeah. All of a
But
sudden,
much further behind them in terms of execution in some situations. But we'll see if we get a good game out of it.
well, I'm always, I'm always apprehensive about using the term Civil War in Oregon.
It's a mistake. It's a terrible mistake.
There's just something that feels so wrong about it,
If anybody's poised for the Civil War where everybody has to wear a top notch, their hair must be tied into a bun on the back of their head, or you can't serve.
Oh God, yeah,
Because where are our standards?
Like Civil War, like that. You'd think they would come up with I don't know, a better name for that, but that who's going to quibble about little things like that these days? It is a zoo. It's going to be a crazy week around here. Although I don't think that the Apple Cup, I definitely notice that the Apple Cup is not as intense, or the week of the Apple Cup. Now, I've only been back here through 2 Apple Cups that were, well, one was canceled, in a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So this will be the first one where people are back at work, and we'll see how much good-natured ribbing and goes on between the Huskies and the Cougs. But I was back here a couple of times during the 10 years I was gone, and it just didn't feel like it was the same.
There wasn't the intensity.
Right. There wasn't. Matter of fact, it hadn't been, I thought, as intense the last couple of years I was here. From 2007 to 2010.
I thought it would be intense when Washington State played Arizona and Delora had to face his old team. I thought that would be a rockin' crazy game.
Yeah, and I guess it turned out not to be as much of a, I mean, I don't know. There's all these tectonic shifts going on in college sports right now, and it doesn't, all of a sudden it feels like you're playing for more than pride. You're playing for your pocketbook as well. You're playing for an ability to go to a bigger program. It's almost really taking on the mantle of pro sports.
They were pointing that out. They were pointing that out. Some schools, UCLA being one of them, is concentrating less on national recruiting because they don't have the same story to tell that USC does, and more on portal skimming to make sure that people coming through the portal, come on out, play for UCLA. We're looking for a linebacker, 6'3", 245 with these kind of skills. Advertising for a wide receiver and tight end.
And if you think about it, it does probably save the schools some money, some time, because now you can go back and you can say, okay, X, Y, and Z are going into the portal. I don't have to go down there and look at them. I can look at their game tape. I can look at this on this competitive level. Before you could only see high school, right? I mean, that's basically what you looked at. Now I can see them for a year or two in a college competitive environment, and I can have a little bit more of a ability to tell what they're going to be like at this level. Therefore, I can take a chance on going into the recruiting portal. So the recruiting portal has become this whole new field of not the recruiting portal, but the portal. The transfer portal has become this whole new place. I mean, I'm sure that colleges have, one coach and one guy or woman who is just sitting there looking at tape all day.
The portal princess.
Yes, the portal princess. She's just looking up and down at what's out there, who can be enticed, because you can't tell me that there's no enticing of these people going on. If you see a good running back that plays for Okefenokee State, and you want to go down there and get them, I'm sure there's a rule against it, but when are we going to start listening to rules in college?
Well, what are the rules? Can the head coach from Spokane University call somebody at Okefenokee and say, not for nothing, but you might want to send me a video or send me a letter inquiring as to the nature of our portal program. Become curious and let me know what you think.
Or how about this? Do you have a coach at Okefenokee who sees a great player and says, boy, you know, this kid really ain't gonna go very far. We're not gonna be much.
Finder's fee.
But my buddy up at USC will pay me 25 grand or 30 grand or what, you know, or whatever it is, to tip him off that John Smith wants to leave Okefenokee and go to USC or Spokane or whatever university you want to figure. I mean, that, you know, never underestimate what the American public will do for money or a radio station prize.
Yeah. Stick it and win.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
the whole idea of financially taking part in a transfer of one school from one school to the other has to be illegal. I can't pay you $25,000 to leave Tennessee and come to USC. If I could, what fund would that come out of? Would that be the athletic department's discretionary spending?
I could pay your shiftless Uncle Louie, who sits on the porch all day and does not much of anything, find him a job here in LA and he could come with you. And
is it a no-show job?
Well, you'd have to show somewhere. You'd be sure it would be a no-show job. Well, no, it wouldn't be a no-show job because you'd have to show up in Southern California.
Somewhere you have to show up. Yeah.
Would it be a working job? Well, that's a whole different story.
Yeah, not so much.
I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that Uncle Louie, who's probably dealing nickel bags of pot off his porch in Screw Me Hard Alexandria, Alabama, I mean, is not going to go. Is going to, all of a sudden get a streak of honesty. And so there's all sorts of room for corruption.
Especially if Alabama starts legalizing weed. I can't see that happening, but it's a possibility. For most of these boys, there's just too much Bama in them.
Now, I don't know if you got a chance to read the article that was in the New York Times over the weekend about sports betting.
No, but it's taken over ESPN. It has consumed it.
It hasn't just consumed ESPN and Major League Baseball, but it's consumed college sports.
Oh, sure.
It really has. And we've talked about this before. I am not a fan of sports betting. I think it will ultimately lead to the destruction of sports in this country. I think that there will come a time when there will be scandal upon scandal upon scandal.
Well, I'll give you something to make you a little bit more encouraged by this. California is recently in the midterm had two propositions on the statewide ballot. Both of them were gambling initiatives brought by the big boys, dual bet and death betting and murder betting, all the big companies back east. And they were both voted down soundly. And it's a good thing because, as you've discovered, when betting's attached to any sport, dirty, ugly, unforeseen, bad things happen.
Bad things happen. It's, and you know what happens even, listen, we can talk about that the game is different, that you look, but the problem is that you look at a game differently when you're betting on it. You don't see the beauty of the game. You don't see, there's 5 billion movies about baseball, about the stories, about the beauty of it, about the the kid grew up, the guy lost his arm on the farm. And, there's a ton of great stories that have been made into movies. Kevin Costner has made a cottage industry out of making these kinds of movies. He's very successful at it. You don't see a whole lot of movies about horse racing. You see a few. Every once in a while, one comes along. But for the most part, because horse racing, for the most part, is people going to the track and laying their money down on the horse.
Calvin, we got a sticky track. Don't run the horses today. No, they got to run. I'm telling you. If he goes down, we'll just shoot him.
You don't see great movies about pool, let's say. You see a few, The Hustler and Color of Money and all of that kind of stuff. But again, when you see it, it's always depicted as kind of this seedy, kind of almost degenerate type people. Grover Cleveland Alexander is a man of the people.
Wouldn't you want to? Wouldn't you want to?
Patch is a man of the toilet. Yeah.
Sorry, but he did live in a different world. But how about a documentary movie about Willie Shoemaker vomiting to make weight? There's nothing more exciting than the life of a jockey.
Yeah. But it takes out that beauty, that sportsmanship, that just that thing that happens that gets people like you and I hooked into a sport. We're not hooked into a sport because the Mets beat this team, or matter of fact, we're hooked into a sport because the Mets lost consistently and then became champions. And the story of that was so phenomenal. It caught something in us about the underdog. You're hooked into a story about Willie Mays because he was an individual that could hit the ball and play at a level better than most of the other people in the game, but he endured much of the same prejudice that Jackie Robinson endured in many places.
In San Francisco.
And certainly in San Francisco. And listen, let's not say that New York was a bastion of integration either. He probably ran into some of the same problems in New York that he ran into in San Francisco. So, people always want to say, well, New York is such a, wonderful city and yada, yada, yada when it comes. No, let me tell you, when I grew up, you had a line that ran down Junction Boulevard. And if you were a white kid, you didn't go on the other side of that line. And if you're a black kid, you certainly didn't come on this side of the line, except when you were bussed in. And anybody who lived in New York in the middle 60s knows how that worked out.
The funny thing is, if you ask people on both sides, why is it like this? They both go, I don't know. It's the way it is.
Like that. Because you were taught from an early age.
That's the way it is.
To hate, that the black man was going to come and steal from you. That the Spanish guy was going to, cut you up with a knife. That, that the Italian was going to try to hit you up for protection money. Or that the Irish guy was going to be drunk. All of these stereotypes were reinforced so many times.
And then you ask, protection from who? Protection from me. Wait a minute. I pay you to protect me from you?
Yeah. Or
that doesn't make any sense. That can't be right. Come back next week.
Right. But you find out that it does make sense because these certain people have gotten themselves in control of some of the things that you need on a daily basis, like police protection or, a window protection or whatever it is, and then you find out, well, you know what, it's better to give these guys $5 a week and just not worry about it than, I can't, have to sleep with one eye open because the place across the street.
And that's exactly the kind of decision that gambling attached to your business makes businessmen make. Well, it'll probably work out in the end. We'll take a chance on it this time. I can't say anything because you know what's going on. It's a nink and a wad or a wink and a nod. I like the other one, a nink and a wad.
I like a nink and a wad. Yeah, is a nink as good as a wad to a blind horse?
But you put a little money in somebody's pocket, and that's what the gamblers have done to the NFL and all the owners and ESPN and television and every level of sports media. And now they're a part of the game, just like the fantasy report. Now here's your gambling report. And Vinny, nobody wants magic on Sunday. They don't want a surprise. They don't want an upset that ruins the spread. A lot of good people lose money. It's not right. The Jets should have lost. That's the way it should have been. They shouldn't be winning these games and screwing up the betting plan that we had. Vegas doesn't like it. I'm telling you that. Yeah.
Does or do you get to a player as we saw in the City College scandals of the 50s? We don't have to lose the game, but we can lose it by just enough.
Shaving.
We can just we don't have, and you can't tell me that this isn't going to happen, because A, it has, and B, it's human nature.
Yep.
People look for the path of least resistance. And the path of least resistance for many people is cash.
Yeah.
However it gets. So fascinating article. I suggest that you jump online and read it. It was in the Sunday Times, and it will open your eyes not only to how gambling can change the sport, but a fascinating look at how it can change politicians.
Oh, imagine. Well, if anything can change a politician, what's the number one reason? What's the number one way to change the politician's mind?
Expensive cigars.
There's only one way. There's only one number one reason, and they all love it. They're in the business to find out who's going to be paying. Who's going to be paying that edge?
It's the lobbying effort. It's the money that's put into campaigns. It is the buying and corruption of our American educational system. So many times we've heard over the past 3 or 4 months that this election stuff has been going on, how the educational system is been corrupted, and how the educational system is failing us, and how the educational system is doing this. Well, go take a look at why. Go read this article. And you have in many spaces and places the same money-grubbing people that will run Exxon and jack the prices up on a gallon of gas right after a pandemic, are also running colleges and jacking the price to get more money from more places than ever before. Yet it's more expensive to send your kid to school. And it goes deep. It goes deep, because the courts do not even want people to have loan relief. Now, we could open up a whole Pandora's box about that. But the reality is, you don't even want to give a break to people that deserve a break.
Have you heard the phrase? Maybe you've heard the phrase, never give a sucker an even break. Now, these guys, Vinny, who think they're going to beat the system, have come up with a plan that they'll be happy to tell you about for days on end, have no graph to check to find out when they become a sucker. Because the real sucker begins before you come in the door and say, what are you guys doing here?
Yep.
Then that's where the sucker's born. Out of curiosity. It never occurs to them that everything they've heard about this scheme is just fishing to get them to get involved.
Ask anybody who runs a carny.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work unless you pay the buck to come through this tent. You got to get in the tent and see what it's all about. Learn the ropes, have some beginner's luck, and start losing money. That's the American way.
So it's on the whole, again, and I know we shot all over the place here, but on the whole, it's a corrupt excuse me, it is a corrupt system that is going to become more corrupt. It's not, sports betting is not going to make America a better place. It may make you better for one afternoon because you won $500 on the team that you put money down on. But as we both know, you're going to give that $500 back to them
Right back.
and plus more. And you've now corrupted a certain segment of society. You now have the people who are weak and have addictive personalities,
Easily misled.
easily, now they're saying, well, if you lose a bet in the first 30 days, we'll just give you the money back. They might as well just be standing outside the schoolyard and saying, listen, if you try this dope and you die, we'll send the money back to your mom.
If you don't like it, we have something else that might be
We'll
interesting.
find something for you.
You'll find something here on the menu that you'll enjoy. It's like, you don't like A&W root beer? We can deal with that.
Right. We have something to fit your addiction, be it sugar, heroin, or gambling.
And as I said, two propositions on the ballot this time, both lost. You don't think they're not coming back?
Oh,
They will
they're coming back.
They will find a way to join.
Come back again.
And they don't need. California can still gamble. You can gamble offshore, you can gamble online. You can find a ton of ways to lose your money.
Go to Artichoke
playing.
Joe's.
There you go.
You go down to downtown what is it? No, it's not San Mateo. It's on the other side. Is it San Leandro? I forget. No, it is San Mateo, I think, or San Bruno. Artichoke Joe's. Open 24/7. Come on in and lose your money.
Come on now. A card room, licensed card room.
Licensed card room. Back from the days when the Pony Express driver used to stop, open the envelopes in his bag.
And he didn't stop just anywhere, It had to make sense for him to stop.
Oh man. So yeah, fascinating article, man. It just, college befuddles me because I just see more and more money being dumped into colleges and less coming out of it. I mean, we talk about so many government programs and so many this and so many that, but I don't know, Michael, I don't see kids getting smarter. I don't see education taking us to a higher level in this country. As a matter of fact, we're getting stupider.
Well, and who's behind the destruction of the education system and has been for the last 20 years? Who actually will tell you that education is a bad thing for your children, and that the whole idea of this critical race theory is what they're going to school for. They won't learn how to add or subtract or cipher at home to help you with the groceries. They won't learn any of that. They'll just learn that they should be guilty about being white. And that's why we're going to stop this right now and nip it in the bud, Vinnie. No more school, eliminate the Department of Education, and we'll finally get down to brass tacks of the ignorant being led around in the streets of America by the corporate wonderkins who have come up with tricks hoops for you to jump through, tricks for you to perform, and satisfaction to be guaranteed. The American way.
Yeah. And now they don't even have to come up with it anymore. They can just feed the information into a computer and the computer will patoot it for you.
Something patooted randomly and successfully.
It'll give you the zip code of where you need to concentrate your venom, where you'll get the most venomous people to come back at you. And the pollsters and the rollsters and the thieves and the degenerates will certainly be looking at that information in your neighborhood soon.
And if you don't know where to meet people like that, you can go on Twitter. Pol Pot is back. Joseph Stalin is back. All the great hits from the past are back on Twitter, and they're happy to be your members. They'll talk with you today. They'll share your information. It's a good thing.
I'm surprised that Adolf Hitler doesn't have an account.
He had one, but
I'm sure he does, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm surprised that Benito Mussolini isn't on Twitter.
He was never good with his thumbs.
Yeah, not funny. Good with his thumbs. I just find it offensive And listen, I'm a free speech guy. I have no problem with Donald Trump being on Twitter. But once he crossed the line of January 6th, which was the line
That he's going to pay for, it looks like.
that, all of a sudden, Elon Musk swoops in and buys Twitter and puts him back on. And of course, he's screwing around with Elon because now they're like two lovers. They're well, I'll let you back in. Well, I don't know if I want to come in.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to come in anymore. I think I'll stand out here in the rain a little bit.
And eat worms.
It's disgusting. And unfortunately, this is what the news covers these days. You get 15 minutes of this on the nightly news and 2 minutes of, what's as a matter of fact, if you think about it and you go back and you look, the tragic shooting in Colorado this weekend didn't make CNN for hours. Because they were too busy talking about Donald Trump and he's getting ready to get back on Twitter.
And that shooting happened at midnight Colorado time, right?
Right. And I think Trump was on Twitter, was allowed to be back on Twitter around the same time. And the big
I wonder how did they find somebody who could turn on the account? Because there's nobody that works there anymore. Every time they need something important, like they can't get in the Jock Lounge to make coffee because no one has the pass key.
Well,
and I don't wonder.
He has a cigar box, and it's just a whole bunch of keys. And my father used to keep a cigar box with a ton of keys. I never knew why he kept all these keys, but he had keys there from his house when he was 9 years old. He had keys there from, old gas stations that he had already chained the lock to.
Did he think that he might need them? That's the easiest way.
So did it come in handy?
Yeah, handy, right?
And it was this Garcia, Garcia y Vega box of keys, and the entire time I knew my dad and worked in gas stations with him and so on and so forth. I think twice I saw him pick out a key and use it in something, because back in those days, locks were very similar. So every 10,000 cars or something had the same ignition.
It could be a Schlage or it could be a Yale.
Yeah. And one time I saw him pick a key out of the box and look and say how this ought to work, and go over to a Chevy that had been locked up by the owner, and the guy took the keys with him.
No.
Put the key in the door, finesse it around a little bit, and boom. Door opened.
That's a General Motors product for you.
Go figure. But those were less insane times.
Well, yes. In fact, I was thinking that the security system for a nation was all based on a series of cigar boxes at individual places and homes across America, where everything was being kept, was vouchsafed for the future. How in the world is it vouchsafed? It's in my cigar box. And where's that? Not so fast.
And so here we are, Michael, talking about another shooting, talking about another person who decided around midnight on Saturday night that it would be a good idea to walk into a bar with an AR-15 and start popping people.
He brought some handguns too, I think, in case they jammed.
He brought enough to take out the whole place if he wanted to.
Yeah. And
luckily, you had some pretty brave people, in my opinion, that stripped him.
Braver than Uvalde.
Yeah, really. Every time one of these things happen, the Uvalde police should go and hide under their beds. Anyway, so again, we are faced this morning in America with the descriptions of the shooter, which there hasn't really been yet, except that he's in the hospital, beaten up by the people in the bar.
Yes.
Yeah, as I'm trying to think of what movie it is, but there's a movie that I remember seeing, and somebody was playing I guess these kids were out rolling homosexuals. Oh no, I know what it was. It was Hill Street Blues.
Wow.
Hill Street Blues. And there was a character played by Lawrence Pressman who was in a club when a shooting went on, and the guy was a cop.
The shooter was a cop?
The guy in the bar was a cop.
I got you.
This is now 1979, when you weren't telling anybody you were gay yet, you know? And so this guy goes in, he shoots a bunch of people up. This guy takes off.
Yeah.
And he doesn't, so Farillo finds out that he's in, that this was the guy. So he gets a hold, he brings him in. He says, listen, you're the only eyewitness that we have. He says, but it's going to ruin me. It's going to ruin my family. It's going to ruin my career. It's going to ruin this. It's going to ruin that. And he says, I can't do it. I'm not going to say I was there. And Farillo says, listen, I understand, blah, 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 blah. So they get, show goes on. Looks like they're going to lose the shooter that they caught. And all of a sudden, the cops, Lawrence Pressman, who's playing this cop, is looking through the one-way glass, through the one-way mirror, and he's looking. And the guy says something about, yeah, I went in that place and I shot those queers and I, blew up those faggots. And he's, just using, and so Pressman opens the door of the thing and he walks in and he says, you see this face? This is the guy. I was there. You didn't get me, but I was there. And I'm the faggot that's going to put you in jail for the rest of your life. And it was a very powerful, especially for that time.
Yeah.
To write a story like that, even, and have that on television. But when I thought of that last night, when I thought of these people who had more nerve in their little finger than anybody in Uvalde seemed to have, where they just ran up and took this guy and beat him up and took his rifle and took his gun.
Yeah. In fact, they did what cops are trained to do. They responded instantly without waiting.
Right. These people are heroes, because that could have been a much worse massacre than it was. And I really don't care, gay, straight, whatever you are. If you're a hero, you're a hero.
Until you actually charge somebody with an automatic weapon, you don't know what it is.
Listen, it's scary to be in the vicinity of where an automatic weapon is being, I know, manly man, and it's all ridiculous. Look, Michael, this story is not going to stop. The names are going to change, and the end result numbers are going to change.
And as these things come in groups, look out, here comes the next school.
Right. This is not going to change. You have somebody, and as a matter of fact, it could get worse, because we now have a person who has signed on to run for president once again, who embraces this kind of violence, who embraces turning people against one another because of their ethnic group or their who they associate with.
And as we've seen in the case of Kyle Tuttlehouse, a kid that got off on all charges because the judge loved him, we also glorify and celebrate the shooters in some cases as heroes of a certain cause, of a certain way of thinking. of the Pol Pot school of lovey-dovey exchange rate. There's nothing that these people cannot turn into a positive, no matter how awful the negative, and including glorifying the actual shooter themselves. We'll find out about this guy who did it, and when they do find out, Tucker Carlson will have him on, and we'll find out what a terrible life he's had, and this was the only way he had to get even. It's perfectly now when you look at it from his point of view, why it's perfectly natural, and that's why we're expecting more shooters to come forward.
And these laws, these red flag laws that they're talking about, they obviously aren't working, because it seems to me, and maybe I'm wrong, that most, if not all, of the shooters that we've seen at these mass casualty shootings over the past, I don't know, year or so, have had some kind of encounter with the police before, have had some kind of warning sign.
You know,
either, well, he's a good boy. He's just, don't worry about it.
Worst thing about Colorado is it's the place with the greatest shootings from Columbine through the one from this weekend. They're the most destructive. The theater shooting in Aurora,
the supermarket in, what was it, Colorado Springs?
Boulder,
yeah.
And so there are a lot of guns in Colorado. That's not a surprise. There's only about 5 million people there. So the everybody's got one. It's part of the culture, and it has been for a long time. It's never going to change. But that part of the culture has given us the worst shootings in schools, the worst shootings in theaters, the worst shootings in stores. Now this.
Well, and again, it always just comes back to me to say, why in the world do you need a gun that can cut a deer in half? Isn't one shot good enough? Isn't the idea that you have the one shot to take at the deer and hit him in the heart and knock him down and kill him and cut him up for food? Isn't that the whole idea of it? I can't imagine that our forefathers, that the people that wrote these laws, this Constitution, said, if we're lucky, this will turn into a whole bunch of people carrying around guns that can eliminate a room full of people in one burst.
Well, people with guns, they love to use them. Sooner or later, they really want to shoot the gun. And it comes sometimes at an inconvenient time for the rest of us, like at midnight.
And people that break into houses and steal these guns love to use them on the people that they break, whose house they break into, because many times they're not secured. Many times they're not locked. Many times if you mention the idea of a trigger lock,
Twitter page
manufacturer, the technology has been around for years. Not that it would have done anything in this case, but the technology is around for years to put a thing on a gun that you put your finger on, your fingerprint on, and it would then unlock the gun, so that somebody who stole it more than likely couldn't use it. Or if they were going to try to get it programmed to use it, it would cost them a whole lot of money.
The shooter in Colorado Springs is 22 years old. Is that what I understand?
I think so, yeah.
So young and got a bunch of guns, at least 3 that we know of, one of them being an automatic weapon.
Yeah, all bought, I believe, by mail order, or bought legally. I shouldn't say mail order. I was mixing up my Oswald with...
well, if you're in Colorado, it's not a pain in the neck to get a gun.
No, it's not anywhere, Michael. It's not anywhere anymore. Either legally or illegally, if you want a gun, it's pretty easy to get one. Some cities back east make it a little bit harder, but the Supreme Court, in their infinite wisdom, has said, well, you know what? Really, everybody should have a gun.
It's the only way that everyone can have a gun, is for everyone to have a gun.
Everybody should, if you want to walk, if you want to put, 2 or 3 million people in Times Square on New Year's Eve, there should be no restriction to them having a gun.
Be safer for everyone if they did.
Why not?
Not that anyone would be drinking or mixing alcohol with an environment like that. I don't
It'll
think
add
you
to
could.
the show, Michael.
Yeah.
Come to New
Yeah.
York and get yourself shot.
Or shoot out the lights when the ball drops. Help
Or
us,
shoot
help
New
us celebrate.
Jersey.
Yeah. Don't shoot to Connecticut.
Yeah.
They love us up there. Shoot to Jersey. We don't care.
Jersey. Shoot over the
Yeah.
river.
Now,
Guaranteed. Matter of fact, we'll line people up for you on New Year's Eve on the banks of the Hudson in Weehawken.
or you can go over and just shoot at prisoners at Rikers. It's a sport. You pay extra for that.
Knock yourself out. Have fun. We don't call New York City Fun City for nothing.
No, we mean it. Definitely, we mean it.
And if you got a gun, come on down, says Jim Dooley. Come on down.
Well, I saw today an ad for there was a big wreck on a freeway over the weekend, and they were using the jaws of life to get the people out.
Yes.
And I thought that I remember a time when I said the jaws of death when I meant the jaws of life on the radio once, and it turned out to be a yuck fest. Everyone was laughing. Jaws of death, ha ha ha. But Jaws of Death is not going to be my nickname for a guy who needs a nickname because his real name is so simple. His name is Jack Smith. Have you heard of him?
Yes, I have.
I want to call him the Jaws of
Worst
Death,
nightmare.
known professionally as the Jaws of Death.
Jack Smith. Could they have found somebody with a simpler name?
You know, a guy who has survived the name Jack Smith to ascend to the legal heights internationally that this guy has achieved. My idea is call him Mr. Smith. That's a good place to start. Don't get him worried about what he's going to have to do to even the score, because the Jaws of Death or Jack Smith is a tough cookie.
Yeah. I think that I read a little bit about him over the weekend. And I think that this guy is going to dive into this thing. It doesn't look like he has any fear about it, and that he's going to go after Trump. Is that there's enough there to indict him?
Apparently, the grand jury is far enough along that as he becomes privy to what they know, what they've discovered, and what they've concluded, he'll have the means to make charges and to require Donald Trump to appear in court, to hear charges against him, to be arraigned. And that's a big deal.
How big do you, if they had a contest in the New York City Police Department, you get to arrest Donald Trump among all the cops, right? You get a whole big thing. Donald Trump is going to be charged on this date. If you produce the most arrests within the next 24 hours, you'll be able to go down to Trump Tower and knock on the door and serve him the warrant and put him in handcuffs and bring him out.
Yeah, some cops are saying, "Hey, I had the most arrests." Yes, but I am chief of detectives. I'm going.
And you can be the one that leads them on the perp walk.
Yeah.
Get up to the 112th precinct. You'll take him out of the car. You'll be famous.
Oh, God. Tell him to watch his head. To be sure to tell him to watch his head.
Would clean New York City up.
And when you put your hand on his head to get him in the car, your hand sticks to the hairspray, and then that's a mess. And that's
Don't
just
touch
ugly.
his head. You don't want to touch his head. If he bangs his head tough, crap.
Tell him to watch out, but don't touch it.
Tell him to put his head down, scrunch his chin to his chest, and get in the back of the car.
And on the way to the courthouse, you say, "Cheeseburgers, anybody? I know a place."
You take him to the local Wetsons. Get him
a cheeseburger before he has to go to court.
I mean, I think that would be the grandest contest ever. You get to arrest Donald Trump. And listen, you could actually do it 3 times. You could you could arrest Donald Trump, you get to arrest Uday, and you get to arrest Ukuse. So, you get the two brothers and the father.
Now you got to take the brothers together because they are a support system. They don't do well without the one without the other. So it's good. Bring a friend.
The only place you find yourself truly alone is when you die and when you're in jail.
Yep.
Unless, of
Not mu-
course, Big Bill over in the corner decides that you're cute.
Then there's too much going on.
Then you're never alone.
Well, I'm looking for some interesting news from the jaws of death. And the reason I bring this up is it's going to get kind of quiet. People are going to get distracted by events and days and parties and Thanksgiving and all that. And then, as you've already seen, we're ramping into Christmas at an alarming rate.
Yeah.
In the middle of all that festivity, watch out for big stories, because that's where it's coming. They haven't got time to wait.
And they're not going to be like, the Trump administration was famous for releasing stuff on Friday night.
All administrations are good at that.
Yeah, after everybody has gone home, 11:59 on Friday night, they, put out that they fired the entire cabinet, or that we've just struck, some country, because we had nothing else to do that Friday.
North Korea. We didn't want to, had to.
We didn't want to do it, had to do it. Wasn't pretty. Dean Wormer announces that he's throwing, the Animal House out of the college, out of favor. So that's when they'll be announcing things.
That's when they put Trump on double secret probation.
Yeah, just run the contest, man. Just have a contest for which New York City cop gets to arrest Trump. It is blowing my theory out of the water that he was going to go quietly.
No.
I thought that maybe he would be given an opportunity to go quietly, just go and get away and let the country move on. But nobody here is about moving on. Nobody, Republicans, Republicans came out on Friday and they laid out their agenda to help the country. What's the agenda?
Hunter Biden.
Yeah. I mean, am I wrong in saying that a week before, when people elected people to office, that they were clearly sending a message that said, we're sick of this stuff. Do something for the country. And what do the Republicans come out and do? Well, yeah, we'll get to the country after we get revenge.
And a special on Twitter. They're going to have secret contests on Twitter, secret double probation contests.
Yeah, I mean, it's like surreal. It's like they're not even listening. And these are the people. You're looking at the prospect of Marjorie Taylor Greene actually having an important and powerful position in this country. And I got to tell you something. If she's the best we can do, Ecuador looks a lot better every moment.
I would pick the south of France or Italy myself, because you want decent food and nice people and a good climate.
Yeah.
Netherlands is too cold.
Yeah, anywhere else, Canada, anywhere else starts to look better. Because this country is, I don't know, I was so encouraged by the election. And now I see what's going on. I see how important it is for Warnock to win in Georgia. So you don't have to live with the Joe Manchins of the world. So that you can say to them, well, you know what, buddy, your vote doesn't count that much.
We covered you, Joe, because we know we can't count on you.
Yeah, you want to play that game, we'll let you play the game. Although, again, I don't notice, I'm of the feeling that the Democrats made a deal with Manchin that may include him as the presidential candidate.
Oh, God, no. That's death on a stick. No, Vinnie, can't be.
I'm just I'm worried that that's what the deal, that is the deal they made with the devil.
Yeah.
That either if Biden doesn't run, he's kind of the anointed one, or if
Manchin's got no,
Biden
he's got
does
got no
run,
chops.
he waits 4 more years.
If you're right, I'm going to have to be the first one to take that department in Vancouver, BC. But I don't think he can be, because he's got no chops. He's got no chops. He can't. He doesn't have a base. He can't deliver in
He's got a lot
America.
of chops, Michael. I think he does have chops in today's environment.
He's hated.
Now, he'll have less chops if Warnock wins. Then he has less chops. But the deal, I think, just from what I've read and looked around at, it wouldn't shock me. I mean, the other thing is, what are we going to do? The Kamala Harris problem. What are we doing there?
It's not going away, and it's not going to run for president, and that's the end of it.
Do we
As John,
that needs to be a position that will be more active.
Well, she struck out. She blew her chances, and it's
Yeah.
unfortunate, but that's the case. And
So
remember,
does she-
former
you
Vice
keep her on the
President.
ticket, or you find somebody else and say,
No,
listen,
I
the
think she's
harsh
stuck.
reality is we got to try to hold on to this past Joe Biden, and we want to
She's-
run somebody who has been somewhat of an incumbent in 28.
I think that it'd be frightening to have that kind of talk, to create a negative, to create an opposition relationship between the party and the vice president. Remember,
Yeah.
John Nance Garner was the vice president for Roosevelt before Truman, and his comments ring across Washington today when he said the vice presidency is not worth a pitcher of warm spit. And that always stuck in my mind, because I don't know where he came to have that analogy, but it came to him, I guess, in an old Washington bar one day, that his job is about the same as all the a nearly full spittoon.
We always wax nostalgic about things that aren't there anymore. We do it several times a week, but the one thing that I am definitely not nostalgic about
Spittoons
is a spittoon. I'm sorry, but I just can't get behind a bucket, the spittoon and the person who emptied it.
and the person who contributed to it. I mean, there's got to be a better way to conduct life.
Well, I think that there's, obviously people, I don't know why people spit more in those days.
Well, what did they do the day that they took him out? Okay, new rule in Washington, D.C., no more spittoons. And the first day after no spittoons, there's Wally just spitting on the floor. Wally, get your act together.
Oh, I don't care if you
no
spittoon.
No spitting.
We have these big no spitting signs left over from the subway. We could put some of those up.
Yeah.
But that never stopped anybody on the D train.
Are they anywhere on the IRT?
Yeah. Yeah, it's one thing that, it's funny because, I go, my daughter and I, we love to go to antique stores and look around and da-da-da. And every time I see a spittoon, I say to myself,
Nah.
are you kidding me? I mean, I got to walk around the aisle because I don't know how sanitized that thing has been.
It's not, whatever it is, whatever level of sanitized it's been, we have
Not
to go
enough.
there not enough by a long shot.
Not enough. I don't care if you're going through that with Boraxo, Lysol, what's the industrial strength, janitor in a drum. I don't care.
Jaws of death.
Jaws of death, you name it. It ain't killing what's in that thing.
No, it shall live there forever.
Unless you
No.
took it to space and detracted the microbes from the metal, and then brought it back. It ain't gonna go in my living room.
And the spittoon salesman comes in and says, I got nice ones in brass. And you go, oh, whatever. 2 more.
How did you get the job of a spittoon salesman?
He also brings in the free lunch on the bar. So just so you know, these people are not washing their hands anywhere near enough.
No, it's
That's
disgusting.
why Boss Tweed had to put his foot down and say, we got to get organized. This is not working for me.
I don't know. It seemed to work for him. Okay. He probably had a spittoon in his office, two of them, one for him and then one on the other side of the desk. So when they came,
It was a spitty world, a lot of things to spit.
yeah, I don't, but why don't we spit like that today? I mean, okay, they passed a law that you shouldn't spit, but when has that stopped anybody? Now, all of a sudden, remember you were a kid, you used to hold spitting contests. How far can you spit? You know, which way can you spit? Can you spit high and make it come down? You had the guys who could spit through their teeth.
Yes, they could. Damn that.
Remember those guys?
That confused me. I don't know how they could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How the hell did you do that?
I had a hard time learning how to whistle too.
I mean, I could, but not loud.
There.
And I could never stick my fingers in my mouth and whistle.
No, that was in the way. It's the lips. Same way you play a flute. Damn.
Yeah. Now we've touched on our inadequacies as a child.
That's where you learn how to spit. That's how you learn how to whistle.
I could never, and those guys could spit like across the schoolyard.
But you know what? No spittoon. I bet there was no spittoons in your neighborhood.
I don't ever remember seeing a spittoon. The only spittoon that I saw in my neighborhood was the grill over the subway tunnel. You know, like people that walk on and go.
Oh yeah.
You know,
What's the
like the phlegm hanging from the metal?
No, enough. There's Irish bars on the west side, 7th Avenue or 8th Avenue, with sawdust on the floor. And I think sawdust came after the spittoon was outlawed because people just weren't as clean as we wanted them to be. It's just easier to sweep out the sawdust and the straw. Because you're living like a king in the year 875 with straw on the floor.
Invariably, they would name McCann's with one N.
Yes.
Like Tom McCann.
And they meant it.
You know, and then there was a group that were named the Clover. Or Blarney Stone. There were probably more Blarney Stones at one time in Manhattan than there were McDonald's.
And plenty of Blarney to go around with it, for that matter.
Yeah. And you could always go into those places and get, a couple of beers and a sandwich.
And the show, there would be just the people and the action there would provide you with quite a slice of life.
And even when they went away from the free sandwiches that were laid out on the bar, cold cuts, they came up with these Stewart sandwiches.
Oh,
which stuck in the thing with the light bulb
underneath the 25-watt bulb.
And they charged you 35 cents for it, but you didn't care. You had a couple of beers. You didn't care what it tastes like. Give me two of them.
What are they? Who knows what they are? You want one or you want two?
Meat.
Yeah.
Some kind of meat is in there and some kind of cheese.
And it's in there and we can't get it out. So we're going to have to go in.
Can tell you what you want to hear. What do you want? Ham? Okay, it's ham and cheese. But
I'd like
it's meatball.
I'd like Chateaubriand on a baguette. And you shall have it, sir. It's right here. It's labeled ham.
We call it olive loaf.
Yeah. And so will you. And that does taste like an old olive.
But at 3:00 in the morning, who cared?
It's time. Time for a sandwich.
3:00 in the morning, man. You were like, what do you got left in the refrigerator? Well, all I got is 2 frozen pizzas and a spiced ham and head cheese.
What about fish and chips? No, don't have the fish or the chips, but
spiced ham and head cheese.
Yeah.
I'll try that.
Yeah.
The Stewart sandwich. Oh my God. Well, Mikey, we've caused enough destruction for a day.
We have. I just wanted to say that murder in Moscow, Idaho, which is a town you mentioned last week, is a back and forth between Pullman, has got me confused. There's just too many things are not right about the story. I don't know if they're going to have an update and try and tell us what's going on, but it reminds me of John Benet Ramsey in Boulder, Colorado, which is another college town, and they never solved that case. She was killed in her own home and they never solved the case. They couldn't figure out who the hell did it. And here's 4 people stabbed in their own apartment with 2 other people upstairs completely oblivious to it. And they haven't been able to figure out who did this. How does that much murder go on, that much mayhem? And 2 other people are living in the apartment and don't even know it? I don't believe that. There's something terribly wrong with that story.
Well, yeah, something stinks. I don't know what it is yet. But it certainly feels not that something, or here's the other thing, the police really do know what happened. And they're just, because there is this idea, Michael, of that the police are supposed to come up and tell the media everything that's going on. We want full transparency. Well, you know what? Sometimes you can't tell everybody what's going on.
No.
And sometimes you just have to stand up and say, we got no comment at this time. We know that there's 4 people dead. Well, the families want to know. Well, if the families want to know, let the families be, take care of their business and we'll get it. We'll get it figured out. And if you want to tell the families something, that's certainly, you can gather them in a room and say, listen, we can't let this go out of this room and hope for the best.
No.
But you know what happens there. Eventually somebody gets to somebody.
Yes.
But
it just doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. And
yeah, I just don't ever remember police giving such detailed updates on specific crimes.
High profile crimes. We need an update.
High profile crimes.
We need another update at 6 o'clock. We need to know how your day went.
Yeah.
I've been here with you all day.
Well, we'll update you on that. I just, listen, I understand people want to know, but there's a certain piece of it. And as bad of a job as the cops did in Uvalde, part of it to me says that part of the reason that they did such a bad job afterwards is there was this whole wanting to know that you have to tell the media. Now, in this case, it was a good thing because it showed them for what they were.
It showed they had no idea what they were doing.
Right. It showed they had no idea what they were doing. But in many cases, sometimes you have to just let the cops do their thing and do what they do.
But sometimes in small college towns, the cops that have to do their thing, the cops are challenged with an investigative challenge that many experienced cops have never come across. It's not like these are New York homicide detectives who have seen a thing or two.
Well, that's why you call the FBI in. That's why you call the New York homicide. You call up New York and you say, can we borrow a couple of your detectives?
We got a mystery here
on the next flight.
It's okay to have a mystery. Say it's a mystery. That's right. Okay.
We don't know. We've called in people from Los Angeles to come up and help us. Yeah. I mean, that's to me what policing is supposed to be, right? That if you can't, there are certain entities that do things well. Maybe the Moscow Police Department controls traffic well. Maybe they arrest drunk drivers well. Maybe they, but being as there's not too many murders in the town.
College town crime.
Right. That they don't generally have a big, a lot of experience in solving a crime like this. So there's nothing wrong with picking up the phone and calling whoever you're going to call and say help.
Yeah.
Whether it's the state patrol, whether it's Dan Matthews, whoever it is.
Oh, 2150 by.
Yeah,
that would get the job done.
But
well, you know what it's like on television, Vinnie, when the feds come in, the FBI comes in and the cops and the feds are at loggerheads. They can't get along. They don't cooperate. They don't help. And then in the end, they have to help each other to get the job done. I'm not saying that that's what we're dealing with in Moscow, but the feds have a way of stepping on the investigation because it's like this. We're taking over from here.
Well,
And wait a minute, this is still our case.
yeah, and I think that probably New York has more of that, and Chicago and Los Angeles and big cities, because big city police departments have this kind of setup where they investigate these crimes all the time,
Yes.
and the feds come in. And but it would shock me if the people in Moscow, Idaho, would say the police in Moscow, Idaho, would say, "Well, we don't want the feds in here because they're going to tell us how to do our job." Well, not for nothing, but the reason you
But
got
then-
it
Yeah.
is because, not that you can't do your job, but your job would be more efficiently and better run by having somebody who has experience in these things run it.
Also, I think they're going to find a clue in that security pad. You have to buzz your way in. It's a four-letter code. Whoever did this had to know that code, and the record of their entry is there. So their fingerprints are there. Their DNA is there. They've been in that apartment, and it seems to me that that's a means by which they can start eliminating
Yeah,
possibilities.
I think they'll figure this out. I think the police know more than they're saying. And I have no problem with them not telling everybody what they know. I think the mistake that they made, and this is what actually makes me think that they know more than they're really saying, is that they did not put a warning out to people that the killer was on the loose, that there was danger, that there was this. That leads me to believe that they know or had an idea who may have done this.
Another reason is because there's already a panic in town, and people, because the holidays are coming, kids are not taking their finals, they're just leaving. And the school can't do anything about that. The school can't tell them you're safe. The school can't say it's all over, we got the guy. The school can't say we were never in any danger and here's why. And consequently, if your daughter was going to school in Moscow, you'd get her out of there toot sweet.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, if my kid was going, I would be like, get on the first whatever it is, or I'm coming to get you.
Yeah.
And you can go online and do the rest of your school year or whatever it is from the living room.
Yeah. We'll figure it out, but you're out of there.
Yeah, but we don't and it, it's now again, I go back to the cops in these towns. What once you saw, I mean, at least the cops in this town, and I saw the press conference with the gentleman in Colorado Springs this morning, and they looked like competent people. They looked like they were, at least on the ball, and they were updating and talking to people.
Wonder how many cops on their staff. It's not a big town.
Doesn't seem like it. I mean, I know it's not a big town. I know it can't be that many cops, but like I say, I'm sure they're being assisted by Idaho State Police, which I don't know if I mean, I've I've been detained by the Idaho State Police, and I got to tell you, I wasn't impressed. Or nor the justice system, for that matter. It was, but again, it was the middle of a pandemic. I'm sure things were different. I know that when you drive into Idaho with a license plate that's not an Idaho license plate, especially
Michigan, yeah.
if it's a California license plate,
Or if it's a Michigan dealer plate.
or if it's this one had, I'm trying to remember now what this had. Did it have California or Michigan? I had Michigan plates, I think. That you certainly get the stink eye. They don't want you, Idaho is famous for not wanting you there if you're not from there.
Well, then let me go.
They're certainly not as clandestine about it as people are here in Washington. I mean, they want you, but for whatever reason, they don't. Where'd you go, Michael? Good golly, all of a sudden, Michael disappeared. Well, all right, it was time to go anyway. So listen, thank you very much for listening. I'm sure I'm speaking for Michael when I say thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch up with you on Wednesday morning, if the Lord's willing and the creek don't rise, right here on Mikey and Vinnie Take on the World. Peace, love, and Manischewitz, baby. What a wine. I was imitating Michael there. Bye-bye now.